Hallelujah. If I can be heard, press 4. Hallelujah. Kaddish di Rabbanan. Yit Gadal va Yit Kadesh Shemei Rabbah. Bialmadi Barak Herote va Yemelich Malkute. B'chayachunu v'yamichunu v'chaye. The Kolbeit Yisrael. Bagala vizman kari v'imeru. Amen. Yehe Shmei Rabba Mavorach. Leolam ul me'amaya. Yit Barak va Yistabach. V'yit Pa'ar v'yit Roman v'yit Naseh. V'yit Hadar v'yit Alei v'yit Halal. Shemei Rakudashah. Berichu. Le'ela min kol barachata v'shirata. Tush bechata v'nechmata. Damiran ba'ama. V'imeru. Amen. Al Israel ve'al Rabbanan ve'al Tamedehon ve'al kol Tamedehon ve'al kol mandasakin borita. Di batara haden v'di b'kol atar v'yatar. Yehelahon ulchon t'lamah rabah. Hine v'chasti davarachamim. V'chayin arakin. Umzona roicha. Ufarchana min kadam abahundi b'shamaya. V'imeru. Amen. Yehi Shama Rabba Meshemaya v'chaim tovim aleinu v'yal kol Israel v'imeru. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav hu barachamav yasei shalom aleinu v'yal kol Israel v'imeru. Amen. Magnified and sanctified, may his great name be in the world he created by his will. May he establish his kingdom in your lifetime and in your days, and in the lifetime of all the house of Israel, swiftly and soon. And let us say Amen. May his great name be blessed forever and all time. Blessed and praised, esteemed and exalted, raised and honored, uplifted and lauded be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he, beyond any blessing, song, praise, and consolation uttered in the world. And let us say Amen. To Israel, to the teachers, their disciples and their disciples' disciples, and to all who engage in the study of Torah, here or elsewhere, may there come to them and you great peace, favor, kindness, and compassion, long life, ample sustenance, and deliverance from their Father in heaven. And let us say Amen. May there be great peace from heaven and good life for us and all Israel. And let us say Amen. May he who makes peace in his high places, in his compassion, make peace for us and all the house of Israel. And let us say Amen. To the Zachanim, the Imot, the Morim, the Achim, the Achiot, Yeladim, I greet you all in the ancient words of peace on this Shabbat day. Shabbat Shalom Aleichem. Pray that this finds each and every one of you all in good spirits and good health and truly reposing, being refreshed and regenerated on this beautiful and wondrous Shabbat day. Want to offer always a hearty Yashar Koach to the Morim, Moreh M70, who we just heard speak in a most powerful offering as well, but for their reading of this week's Parshat, which is Beis Shalach, Todah Rabbah, for your reading and your compassion and your consistency in doing such a wonderful job in bringing forth the Parshiot for us in our hearing. So truly, truly thankful for that and your continued labor of love to do so. But Moreh M70 and your presentation of lest they turn back because of their fear of war, paraphrasing, of course, your offerings title, but very, very, very profound, very timely, very insightful as relates to what is going on with these Carmanians, the Carmonians, and the Iranians in the United States, and these dragons of Arabia, and the sabers of war being just struck, and the drums of war just being just rounded up. I mean, we are witnessing the manifestation of prophecy before our very eyes. We need to be very much aware of these current events that are going on. And it is truly, I mean, just a powerful witness of the sovereignty and the providence of Yah and his true mastery and control over creation and even the affairs of man. So I want to say Todah Rabbah, as well as another Yashar Koach, for your offering of that. And as I was typing in the text boxes, you were providing your summary statement about being really leading up into, this offering that I'm presenting to you all, your assessment of us, being really educated in terms of our role and our revolutionary or evolutionary measures to bring about a change in society is imperative. I mean, it is crucial. And the fact that you talk about it not being an immediate process, but a protracted type of undertaking in which we are to bring forth a new reality. It can be rapid, but there has to be some sort of leading up to it. It doesn't just poof because this organization or this organism of humanity is going to require a complete transformation. And I want to also welcome those who recently entered into the room. Achlaman. Hope you got that email I sent you this morning. Brother Jamal Omari, Shalom Alaikum. Brother Aaron, love and happiness as well. And all who recently entered the room, Naim Yahu, Shalom Shalom. And just welcome to Hebrew Vision. But yes, it is a very, very powerful process that we have to go through, which leads to what I want to present today. My offering that I want to share with you all has as its title. Let me type it in this box. The Pedagogy of Liberation. The Pedagogy of Liberation. And if you just bear with me 1 second, I should have really did this earlier, but let me do this now and get this definition for you. I want to bring up the definition of the word pedagogy. So what I will do is provide this here. Give 1 second. Just give me 1 second as it copies this link. And I always find it important to provide us with terms. And give me 1 more second. This, when you access, give me a 4. The word pedagogy, according to dictionary.com, is entitled the function or work of a teacher. A teaching, okay? It is a teaching, a doctrine even, you could say. It is the art or science of teaching, education, instructional methods, okay? The origin of the word pedagogy is from the Greek pedagogia, which means office of a child's tutor. Now, one thing that I really find important that I also want to bring out in terms of what I don't want to do that. Let me see something. This computer's acting slow. And this just came to me to provide this background for you all. So this is why I'm taking a moment, I'm sorry, to get this all together. Because I really want to provide us with some background before I get into the actual writings that are prepared for today. Give me 1 second. Trying to pull up some stuff. Let me see. So, let's see. Well, let's do this here. Well, let me look this word up then and I'll get this going. But education, when you get to the root word of education, it's the etymology, of education is actually what is known as educare. And that is a Greek word, but that Greek word means to bring out, okay? To cause to emanate, to bring out that which is within. And this is what we're going to get into today in understanding the importance of having a teacher that is not so much pouring into students, which is a Western model of education, but more of an Eastern educational model and paradigm that actually brings education or brings out that which is already within, okay? And so this is what we want to really understand, okay? And so what we want to look at next, as soon as I get this here up, is what a real student is about. So when we look at I'll just go to this here then. We're going to go to Wikipedia with this article. Just a real brief, quick article, okay? So this is, the teacher, which we know is a moreh in the Hebrew. And I'll look at that too. But let's look at this first. Let's look at what is called a Talmid Chacham. A Talmid Chacham, okay? Which means a wise student, okay? In Talmudic Hebrew, Talmid Chacham is an honorific title given to one well-versed in Jewish law, in effect, a Torah scholar, okay? They are prizing Torah knowledge above all worldly goods. The Talmid Chachamim in Jewish society were afforded many privileges and prerogatives as well as duties. In the Middle Ages, a Talmid Chacham was consulted by the Jewish community not only in spiritual matters, but also in worldly affairs. Even when he held no official position in the community, he supervised religious activities, determined the time and form of prayers, verified weights and measures. They enabled him to devote himself entirely to the study of Jewish legislation, exempted him from the payment of taxes, and for performing any specific duties. This person was devoted, thoroughly immersed and entrenched in study to derive a clear understanding of what the expectations of the Torah are. A Talmid Chacham is expected to uphold his rank and not to compromise his dignity. As in the case of a king, he is not permitted to allow anyone to omit the performance of any public act of reverence due to him, to the effect that the Talmid Chacham acts as a facilitator, because in him the halakha is honored or slighted. There are, according to the Talmud, 6 acts a Talmid must avoid. I'm not going to get so much in that, but I just wanted to really bring this here out, okay? Because that is very, very important to understand. And when we understand the epitome of someone who embodies Torah, this is what that is all about, okay? Now, let's look at this here. And I apologize for not having this prepared, but this just came upon me to really get into, this backdrop before we get into the actual articles that I want to present, okay? So, let's get this here. I want to present this here, and then we're going to go ahead into the meat of what I want to present. But this is just some backdrop information that I find important as relates to getting a contextual understanding of what pedagogy is all about, okay? Because we're dealing with pedagogy, your instructional methods, educational methods, the office or the role that a teacher is to play, or the administration of education to a teacher, a student, I mean. This is what this is really about. I'm multitasking, so that's why I'm kind of like talking in a rambled sense, so please forgive me for that. But let me get this here to you when it comes up. Come on. All right, here we go. Sometimes you just got to be patient as opposed to just pushing buttons. It's like you're waiting for the elevator and you're pushing the button repeatedly thinking that that's going to make it come faster when it's really not. It's going to get there when it's going to get there. You just got to be patient and wait on the elevator. That's how I was doing with this particular, trying to post this link up in this room. Yep. So this is the definition of the word more, the amazing meaning of the name more. It's not responding now, of course. I'm going in and out as well. I can imagine, because my computer's running slow. Tell me if I'm clear. If I'm clear now, give me a 1. Because this computer is going in and out. Let's see if I can get this here going yet. All right. So there's 2 locations, of course, known in the scriptures. Access would give me a 4 when you get that. I think I did send a link. I believe I did, right? Yes, I did. Okay. But go down to where it says the etymology of the name more. Okay. This is very interesting. Okay. The name more is identical to the noun more, which may either mean early rain or teacher, from the word yara, which means to cast or shoot, to throw, cast, or shoot. Now, what's so deep is yara is also the root word of the Torah. Okay, so a more is akin to Torah in that they share the same root. Okay, and that is what's so deep, to throw, to cast, or to shoot, which also is the idea of instruction, the early rain, to rain upon the dew of the grass, to rain upon the grass, the dew of instruction, so to speak, right? So the forms yare and yara are officially unrelated, but their basic mechanisms appear to overlap somewhat. Both reflect, here it is, an exchange of energy from a higher dispensing level to a lower receiving level. This is what this is all about, the exchange of energy from a higher level to a lower level in order to bring up that lower level to the higher level, right? It appears that the form yara or yare mostly describes the sending of the energy, either the exchange viewed from the perspective of the dispensing side, which would be the teacher, the more, right? Or else the shock-free absorption of the energy on the receiving side. The form yara appears to deal mostly with the receiving of the energy, the exchange viewed from the perspective of the receiving side, and that usually with the anticipation of intense alteration, an intense transformation, an intense change, right? To change, to bring forth a new reality. Note that one of the 2 verbs, yara, is a biform of yara. And also note the similarity between these forms and the verb ra'a, meaning to see, to perceive, or look at. And that is what the definition of being made in the image and likeness of Yah is about. To have the divine perception, right? To see. Remember, this is what Yahushua was talking about. One shall not see the kingdom of heaven unless he be born again, right? And this is about a perception. You have to change your mind. Now, let's go ahead and get into what I want to get into today with this particular offering. Let's get to the meat of what I want to bring about to you all today. This first article comes to us from holisticeducator.com. It is called Liberatory Pedagogy. Okay? When you access this article, please give me a 4. It is the Education for Freedom, or critical education, a libertarian, all right? A liberating, or liberatory pedagogy. The theme of this article is liberatory pedagogy recognizes the politics of education. They recognize the politics of education. Liberatory pedagogy, education for liberation, or critical pedagogy. The goal is self-actualization or humanization. The goal is to become fully human and fully self, not just realized, but actualized. That means to have a manifest presence. That means to have an actual resulting activity that is in consequence to the information that you have put in. He starts out with a quote from the classic book by Paulo Freire, The Pedagogy of the Oppressed, saying, quote, "An act of violence is any situation in which some men prevent others from the process of inquiry. Any attempt to prevent human freedom is an act of violence. Any attempt to prevent human freedom is an act of violence. Any system which deliberately tries to discourage critical consciousness is guilty of oppressive violence. Any school which does not foster students' capacity for critical inquiry is guilty of violent oppression." If that does not typify the public school system, the charter school system, the institutional university academy system, well, then I don't know what does. So education is a matter of politics, power, relationships, right? The art of relationships. We're going to make sure this status quo is maintained. So we're going to educate these people in this fashion in order for them to not buck the system. But education is a matter of politics as well as pedagogy. The practice of education for liberation takes place in circumstances of specific power relations. That is what this is about. Relations, the art of relating. That's what politics is about. Fundamental expression is given to power in politics and reflected in the meaning of language. So we can't just say, oh, that's semantics. It's just semantics. Well, semantics definitively is about meaning. And if you have no meaning in what you're trying to convey, well, then you're not saying anything. There's no substance to what is being said without semantics, meaning. Liberatory pedagogy incorporates a struggle for meaning as well as a struggle for freedom and justice. This is what we're about. This is what Hebrew Vision is completely set on accomplishing, bringing forth a struggle for meaning as well as a struggle for identity as well as a struggle for freedom, our liberation in Torah, and most importantly, we want justice. Emphasis is placed on profound respect for human nature, human needs, and the human struggle for growth towards complete humanization. This is what the word tamah is all about. This is what the word to be perfect in Hebrew is all about. It means to be mature. It means to be complete. It means to be whole, to be ritually pure in order to offer yourself to the Most High. So education is the process by which we go about accomplishing said task. Education is a social project which involves politics as well as pedagogy. Education which recognizes the political aspects of teaching as well as the pedagogical aspects is known as critical education or critical practice. Critical education is a form of pedagogy which emerges from the joint languages of critique and possibility and involves critical reflection and action. Critical education is fundamental to the development of human dignity and courage or humanization. Critical education, okay? This is what we're dealing with as relates to recognizing the political aspects of teaching and their impact and their means to assure a people's survival and they're thriving in their environment. This is what this is about, right? Full humanization of the individual and of the society is the end result of a pedagogy of liberation or freedom. Education for freedom is liberatory pedagogy. Enlightening when the U.S. locks the people up is an act of war, very much so. Very much so, Auntie. When you learn the truth will make you free. When you shall know the truth, right? And that is where your freedom comes from, the truth. And this is what this article ultimately tells. This is the next sentence. Liberatory pedagogy is a liberating, life-affirming, humanizing, democratic, problem-posing, challenging pedagogy which strives to unveil the true nature of reality, the truth. This is what liberatory education is all about, or pedagogy. It's about arriving at the conclusion of this is the truth. And let me go back and say this. This is what Adam knew in the garden prior to eating from the tree of knowledge and evil. He didn't know what was good and evil. It wasn't even a perception, a concept to him. What he knew was the truth as opposed to the falsehood. What he knew was reality as opposed to illusion. So he didn't have need to understand that, well, this is good and this is evil. There was no need for that because his awareness, his consciousness, his understanding, his intelligence, reason, and logic and intellect allowed him to go beyond that. And so this is what we need to arrive at. And this is what we arrive at when we become fully humanized. The truth is what will set you free, first with yourself, and then in the society in which you live. And this is our goal as the ministers of this good news, of this Besorah, as we call it in the Hebrew. The good news is called Besorah. The good news. They call it the God spell in the Latin, but we don't deal with the spells of the gods. We deal with Yah's word. Students, as they are increasingly posed with problems relating to themselves and the world and with the world, will feel increasingly challenged and obliged to respond to that challenge. Now, this is students of life. This isn't just classroom. This isn't just K through 12, secondary, post-secondary education. This is about life, people. Yep. Very much so, daughter of the highest. Shushu natural. Very much so. So students will feel obliged to and respond to this challenge because they apprehend the challenge as interrelated to other problems within a total context, not as a theoretical question. The resulting comprehension tends to be increasingly critical and thus constantly less alienated. Their response to the challenge evokes new challenges, followed by new understandings, and gradually the students come to regard themselves as committed. We need committed people in this struggle for liberation. This is what we need, and this is what we have with this remnant. And this is why I'm not mad that we just got 32 people in here at all. Because I'd rather ride with 32 committed people than let's say some of the other rooms have 200 something people who are just fair weather. They're not committed, more than likely. They're just there because it's a social thing. I want some committed riders. You see what I'm saying? Because I know if I'm a ride, I want somebody to ride with me and have my back, not backstabbing as Zakane Yona just said. So don't despise small beginnings. There's wisdom in that. This is why Gideon was told, man, look, you got too many heads up in there. Cut that down. Let me show you what you want to do. Because I'm going to get the esteem in this, not you all, because that's what's going to happen when you got all these big groups and the broad path and all these heads. They're going to start patting themselves on the back. They're going to forget that Yah was the one who led them through it. Man, you see what we just did? No, you didn't do a thing. You were supposed to just be faithful, right? Continuing on. Liberatory pedagogy fosters rational thought, reason over emotion. Liberatory pedagogy fosters rational thought. We need to get out of emotion, get more established in principle and in reason. Liberatory pedagogy fosters rational thinking by demythologizing, demysticizing reality and transforming it. Demythologizing and demysticizing reality and transforming it. We have to create reality. This is what we have to understand. The way we create reality is by obeying the laws, the statutes, the commandments, the right rulings, the judgments of the Most High. That's how we create reality. To have a rational and critical perception of one's reality means that one can perceive the various parts as constituent elements of a whole, having a total vision of the context of the constituent fragments and thereby gaining a clearer perception of the reality in its totality. M70 just went about connecting the dots so that you can perceive the reality in its totality, not just in its little fragmented portrayal in the news. No, we need to understand this historically. We need to understand this spiritually. We need to understand this geopolitically. We need to understand this culturally. We need to understand this economically. Name it. Because it's all connected. Okay? So this is the holistic perception of reality, which is required for congruence of thought and action necessary for survival, as I was just talking about, in a changing environment. With the holistic perception, the individual perceives critically, not just, well, let me think about it. Okay, that's what's up. No, critical thought. We need to perceive critically his own mode of existence in the world based on accurate and objective perception of reality, of his surroundings, and his world. Survival depends on rational thought. Survival depends on rational thought. Listen, survival depends on rational thought, decision making, and action. So at the C we just read this week, this past earlier this morning, he says, "Why do your people cry out to me now? Why are you lifting up your voice and crying out to me? Move forward." Okay? Now that you know what is before you, move. Now that you have seen my witnesses and my miracles, move. Now that you know and understand that I am Yah and you have seen me manifest my intervention in your experience, move. Make the right decision and move accordingly. His actions are based on his perception of the reality of his world, development of the critical faculties, critical objectivism. The individual perceives the world as a reality in process or transformation. Every day is a new day. Everything is being created anew every day. He sees his situation not as fated, but as limiting and therefore challenging. He can reflect on his own situation critically and objectively and then act on his objective perception of a reality in process. He can make decisions on the basis of this objective perception and move and work to change the situation and transform his world. Education as the practice of humanization is true education. That's what the purpose of education is to bring forth the full, complete, mature, perfect you. That's what education is for. True education involves a pedagogy which is based on the practice of liberation, i.e., liberatory pedagogy. Liberatory pedagogy is a pedagogy of liberation centered around the principles for social change and transformation through education, not through protesting, not through boycotts, not through riots, not through voting, not through anything that is conventionally told for us to do. It is based and achieved through education based on consciousness raising and engagement with oppressive forces. That's what education is about. That's what transformation is about. I'm going to read that sentence again. Listen close. Liberatory pedagogy is a pedagogy of liberation centered around the principles for social change and transformation through education based on consciousness raising and engagement with oppressive forces. Liberatory education cannot serve the interests of any oppressive order which prohibits the individual from questioning the validity of the social reality. This is fake news. That's what they're doing this for, because they don't want to be told on. They want to keep their what's the word I'm looking for? Their clandestine activities in the dark. That's what it is. So as the practice of freedom to inquire, liberatory pedagogy is grounded in the interrelatedness between reality and human consciousness. They're talking about some quantum physical type of things right here, right? This is like quantum physics. If you're dealing with reality and human consciousness and understand the impact that human consciousness has on reality and vice versa, well, then you're dealing with quantum worlds. You're dealing with what's called metaphysical realities. You're dealing with spiritual dynamics, people. Liberatory pedagogy is a vehicle or a referent for change. As a referent for change, liberatory pedagogy fosters the raising of consciousness. That's where revolution starts, in the raising of consciousness, the engagement of oppressive forces, and the transformation of the social context. Now, when we think of engagement of oppressive forces, just curiously, type in the box. What comes to your mind when you think of engagement of oppressive forces? Well, let me ask this. Does that always imply a physical engagement? Do you have to physically make some sort of engagement with the oppressive forces in order to defeat them? Because we talked about this last week. Do you have to always physically engage oppressive forces in order to defeat them? Exactly, you don't. Prayer is important, yes, but we have to strategize. We also have to disengage in well. Engaging can also be disengaging. It can be divesting. You see what I'm saying? It can be exposing them for what they are. It can be diverting one's resources and energy from that force to another particular force. Build elsewhere, exactly. Undermine and usurp, sabotage. Develop a critical mass of consciousness to get people to move away from that. That's an engagement. So you can engage by organizing around the divesting of people's life, energy, and resources in that particular direction. And educating them, exactly, and educating them. So let's really understand what engagement is about, all right? The forces of oppression derive from the ignorance or illiteracy of uncritical consciousness. This is why entertainment reigns supreme in Western societies. This is why bread and circus events are the order of the day. Because you're not thinking. If you break down the word entertainment, it means to not think. It means to amuse. If you're amused, a in that particular prefix means not. Muse means think. So if you're amused, you're not thinking. And that's where oppression derives its power from as a force, from ignorance and illiteracy. Illiteracy is the inability to perceive or read reality with a critical consciousness. Right. Hollywood is known for that. The manipulation of your mind. That's what a Hollywood is. A wood made of holly is a magic wand, and that magic wand is meant to manipulate the minds of the masses. But to be uncritical, let me go back. Illiteracy, to be illiterate, doesn't mean you just can't read a book. It means you have the inability to perceive or read reality with the critical consciousness. Some people are socially illiterate. Some people are spiritually illiterate. Some people are politically illiterate because they can't read what's really going on in reality. To be uncritical is to be unaware of the human character, of the culture, and to perceive one's condition and one's world as a natural function of uncontrollable forces and therefore as fated and inevitable. For their actualization, the meta needs require a growing, promoting cultural environment. So beyond what we need on the surface, right? The meta needs require a growing, promoting cultural environment. We need something that is going to promote what is going to cause us to thrive. The meta needs must be actualized by social environment, culture. This is why we emphasize Torah so much in this room, because that is our culture. This is our immunity against the Yurugu, white supremacist, Western paradigm culture, right? The status quo. Growth promoting social environment and actualization of spiritual needs or meta needs. Liberatory education, facilitative pedagogy provides a growth promoting social climate which acknowledges the meta needs and fosters growth. The basic physiological and psychological needs are obviously instinctive in nature. the similarly biological-based meta-needs, though they are less urgent and weaker than the basic psychological needs, are also instinctive in nature. Fulfillment of the meta-needs can be fostered through the acknowledgement, encouragement, and enforcement of the individual's instinctive yearning for truth, beauty, experiential richness. The spiritual needs or meta-needs is meta-motivation. The meta-needs or the spiritual needs are meta-motivation. They have to come from beyond. We have to be motivated from something that is larger and greater than ourselves. It is possible to design an educational program around the instinctive meta-needs, necessitating a cultural environment for their actualization. Meta-needs and meta-motivation can be lost in a social and cultural environment which does not acknowledge the meta-needs as a part of human nature. So when you're entrenched in a very materialist-based society that doesn't acknowledge the meta-needs and the meta-motivation, well then they will get buried. They fail to acknowledge the meta-needs for growth constitutes the external cultural force which deprives the individual of conditions which are essential to personal growth. They don't want that to happen. They want you to just be a cow. They want you to be sheep led to slaughter, just like M70 read. He says, quoting from, I believe it was Jeremiah, that the people are sheep led to slaughter. Continuing on. In a cultural environment which focuses on the basic psychological and physiological needs, meta-motivation is inhibited by the forces external to the individual, who is thus deprived of the means for gratification of the meta-needs. They are supplanted by immediate carnal gratifications, right? Not by delayed gratifications, which will cause the spirit to develop through self-discipline. As a result of the individual's ambivalent feelings toward the instinctive meta-needs, which can be both attractive and frightening, internal repression, denial, and reaction responses can inhibit meta-motivation. So when you're dealing with all these police terroristic acts committed and perpetrated against our people, that is meant to suppress and ultimately quench completely our meta-motivation and our meta-needs, because all we're doing is being in a survival reactionary mode. We're not being able to have any luxury time to sit back, reflect, think critically about what's going on, because we're always in some sort of reactionary position. And that will never cause anyone to truly develop, right? Because they're being traumatized. They're being oppressed. So we need some intellectuals to sit aside and not just get engaged in the regular rigmarole of protests and boycotts and all these other things. We need people that are doing some hard work, organizing, critically thinking, and assessing the situation. Exactly. That's what they said even in enslavement. Take the mind, keep the body. If you control a man's thoughts, you don't have to worry about his actions. Nevertheless, a cultural environment which respects the meta-needs as part of human nature fosters the individual's growth towards self-actualization. A cultural environment which respects the human organism's instinctive meta-needs as well as basic psychological needs fosters the individual's meta-motivation towards full human awareness or humanness. Homo sapien. What does it mean to be a Homo sapien? Type that in the box, somebody. What is the definition of a Homo sapien? If someone has reached the full potential of being a Homo sapien, what does it mean to be Homo sapien? Those two words, break those two words down. Homo sapien. I would prefer you to not go to a dictionary, because this should be something you should know and understand already. We need to have these semantics down. Understand why Yah created Adam, man, humanity, Homo sapien. Okay, it does mean, yes, of the earth. Homo means man, indeed. What does sapien mean? I'll give you a hint. It comes from the word sapient. To be sapient. To have sapience. Wow, your sapience is amazing. What is sapient? What does it mean to have sapience? Indeed. But it means wisdom, clarity. to be an intellectual, to use the reason that the Creator gave you. The heights of knowledge. That's what sapience is. You have reached the heights of knowledge. Man, exactly, sagacious. Man, in his sapience, has reached the fullest potential of his humanity, right? That is what that is about. Wisdom, Chachma, okay? Talmid Chacham, the wise student. That's why I brought that up. This is what a Homo sapien is supposed to be. And always remain in the position of a student. Even if you've attained mastery, remain a student. Recognition, acknowledgement, and respect for the instinctive meta needs as well as the basic psychological needs constitute the external cultural forces which foster meta motivation and growth towards self-actualization and full humanness or experiential richness. A cultural environment which respects the instinctive meta needs as well as the basic psychological needs fosters meta motivation and growth towards self-actualization and full human awareness, humanness, or experiential riches. The uncritical individual is ignorant of the nature and significance of knowledge as a process. This is what Moray M70 was just speaking about. It is not immediate. It is not instantaneous. It is not microwave or drive through or fast food type of stuff that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a process. And this is about maintaining a primitive language. This is speaking directly to us, people. This is speaking directly to us in our Hebraic consciousness. Maintaining a primitive language and refusing to learn how to analyze language with language in order to remain uncritical. All right? So we need to understand how to analyze language. What are they saying? Just like Elder talked about the word nice. Oh, that was real nice of you. Well, when we just use that word on a basic level, of course, conventionally, it means it was pleasant. Oh, it was well received. But when you get to the essence of nice and you understand it comes from the word nescient, to be ignorant, to be of nothing, that was very ignorant of you, really. And this is what you're dealing with when you're going into the courtrooms. It's all about word wars. Word wars. And we've spoken about that numerous times in this room. This is a war of words. Words are energy. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was Elohim. Do you understand that? And why we must analyze language critically? Because the spells that they're putting out into society through the intonation of words are putting people to sleep. Knowledge is a function of knowing, a process. The key to liberatory pedagogy is the concept that knowing and knowledge are matters of process, not product. It's not the end of what you've gained just because you read a book. What are you doing with it? How have you processed it and applied it? How have you actualized that information that you've just internalized? Knowledge as process is defined in terms of critical acts of knowing or acts of cognition, not in terms of transferals of information. Just because I gave you this book and you read it don't mean that you're knowing what to do with it. Do something with it. That's like M70 said, do something. Acts of cognition result from a process of understanding the social environment or reading reality. Reading reality or learning is effectively enhanced when it takes place at the social level, when you're starting to implement it and incorporate it into society. A learning situation in the social context involves the object of cognition and the cognitive actors, teacher, student, parent, child, and so on. The learning process involves the creation of new knowledge, which is not absolute, but relative, since it is successive to previously existing knowledge. Knowledge that exists in the present was only a viability, which has become new knowledge. The learner has the freedom to develop self-discipline, engage in self-directed learning, and achieve self-actualization. Education for freedom goes beyond the notion of schooling. Schools represent only one of the important sites where education takes place. That's why I say we're not just talking about the brick and mortar. We're talking about life. Education for humanization often implies engagement with the dominant forces of society. I'm going to skip this part here and go down to where it says liberation theology advocates peaceful revolution through critical literacy. This is where I want to end this article at. It's the last paragraph in bold letters that says liberation theology advocates peaceful revolution through critical literacy. We're going to end there. When you get there, give me a 1 so I can go ahead and read it. I want you all to follow along. Man, I didn't expect to take this much time up on this one article. Everybody there? All right, Yona, you there. That's all I need to know. As long as you there, Elder Yona, we good. So the most eloquent advocate of liberation theology is the compelling educator Paulo Freire. He is the author of Pedagogy of the Oppressed. He emphasized the close relationship between human freedom and cultural literacy. Literacy means not only knowing how to read and write, but how to read and write critically. Freedom for the individual in a cultural context depends on his ability to search for meaning in his cultural environment, to criticize the cultural belief systems, values, and institutions of his social and cultural environment. It depends on his capacity for the inability to read, his capacity for critical consciousness. To Freire, the development of critical literacy represents hope in that it provides a way in which humanity can freely and peacefully struggle for freedom. Illiteracy is not only the inability to read, but the inability to read with a critical consciousness. The ability to read does not constitute literacy. Just because you can read a book doesn't mean you're literate. Reading without a critical consciousness is being able to read. Human dignity entails responsibility, and responsibility entails being critical. People must be critical in order for them to continue to be critical. So it's like, man, why are you so critical? Why are you breaking this sitcom down so tough, man? Why are you talking about what you looking at when you watch movies, man? Why can't you just relax and enjoy the movie? No, I can't. I must analyze this and see what subliminals they're putting out. Because I ain't going to sleep. They're not going to put me to sleep and anesthetize me. They're not going to lobotomize me. You can be lobotomized if you want, but for me, I got to be critical. I want to relax sometimes, but guess what? I know I'm at a point in time in history where I can't. Because these people ain't relaxing. They're not stopping the murder of us. They're not stopping the trafficking of us. They're not stopping the oppression of us. Have they relaxed? Because if they relax, I might consider it. But even still, I know I got to rise. I got to raise up. Continuing on. People must be critical in order for them to continue to be critical. Critical consciousness is crucial for freedom, autonomy, and justice. Look at that. Critical consciousness is crucial for freedom, autonomy, and justice. Who wants those things? Give me a 1. If you want freedom, autonomy, and justice, type 1. If you don't want it, type 0. If you want to be enslaved, controlled, and deal with injustice, type a 0. That's what I thought. So guess what you got to be? Critical. Freire's notion of conscientization represents a pedagogy of liberation from the oppression of illiteracy and an uncritical consciousness. His word conscientiazo meant learning to perceive social, political, and economic contradictions and to take action against the oppressive elements of reality. And this is where dialectical materialism comes in. I'm not saying the Hegelian dialectic, but dialectical materialism in the sense that you must understand and learn how to reconcile the contradictions. That's what this is about. So pedagogy of the oppressed, this is where that comes from. To be uncritical is to be unaware of the human character of our culture, to see the world's condition as natural or inevitable, and one's particular condition as a function of uncontrollable forces, which is all the mythological notions and the mysticizing notions that we have to demythologize and demysticize. We are the controllers of our destiny. But we have to allow destiny to manifest. And even we have to take control to manifest destiny. That was the offering that was given not too long ago. We do that by following the will of the Most High. That's the reality. Continuing on. To be uncritical, one has to be ignorant of historical processes. If you don't know history, you're bound to repeat it or doomed to, and of the nature and significance of knowledge. One can remain uncritical by maintaining a primitive language and by refusing to learn how to analyze language and to analyze with language. According to Freire, an act of violence is any situation in which some men prevent others from the process of inquiry. Any attempt to prevent human freedom is an act of violence. Any system which deliberately tries not to foster the capacity for critical consciousness is guilty of oppressive violence. Any school which does not foster students' capacity for critical inquiry is guilty of violent oppression. Ignorance and literacy are necessary ingredients of poverty, hunger, misery, and oppression. So if we want to have wealth, if we want to be sustained and nourished, if we want to experience joy, and we want to be liberated, we have to overcome ignorance and illiteracy with knowledge and with literacy. And that's just not with books. So that is the first offering, the liberatory pedagogy. Our next offering now is to understand the dynamics that we're up against. Okay? What are we up against? This is important to understand as relates to our critical analysis of our environment with using language. So with this next article, which I'm trying to get to come up, excuse me. Excuse me. Come on, stop doing that. Let's see. Oh, man. I hope you all enjoyed that first article. I know I truly did. It was very insightful. I actually found it this morning and really trying to just find an encompassing article that would really set the tone for this particular offering that I wanted to present to you all. And so now, here we go, finally. Excuse me. This article comes to us from Humans Are Free. It is entitled Tools to Keep Mankind on the Edge, the NWO Manifesto. I'm not going to read this whole article. I really want to get just to some of the tools that they use with some of the background that is in it. Okay? And then you can go back and then go read it yourself. Okay? So when you access this article, Bavakasha, give me a 4, and we're going to get into it, all right? So now sometimes when I write, it is like it comes out of me without thinking, but this time was very different. I don't know where this really comes from. This is a new experience for me. Perhaps it was my visit with the shadow people when I experienced Ayahuasca, as we have control of everything in the world: economics, agriculture, production, transportation, media, education, governments, alimentation, healthcare, technology, water, land, sea, air, space, legal system, national and international. And we have reached a certain pinnacle of technology. So we can't say that we are fated to meet anything, because when you look at it, the governments control everything. They don't rely on fate. They make sure that they are in control of their circumstance and in their environment. It has become necessary to take steps to ensure our survival in this realm. This means we must eliminate the immediate threat and cull our herd at the same time. Now, when you look at this picture, this is very symbolic. New World Order, of course, but this woman is blindfolded. So that means her ability to perceive things as they are is greatly handicapped. Okay, and we know that this happens, of course, through media, through the education system, so on and so forth. But this is a very important article to get into. The accelerated program comes as a galactic awakening. which is happening and which must be suppressed in order for us to continue our rule in this realm. This is what the New World Order is saying. This has awakened energies which we have long thought eradicated. With the advent of the internet, some people have voraciously absorbed information which was once secret or limited by factors which are no longer viable due to technology. Thankfully, many layers of our PR defenses have been actively working to counteract whatever damage has been done with the leaks of information over the years. A strategy of confusion has been active for many years now, saturating the internet with useless but convincing information for people to follow. Below is a summary of the steps taken and needed in order to achieve the goal of the New World Order and rule for centuries to come. This awakening must not be allowed to happen, and the vibration level of the people must be kept as low as possible. The vibration of the people must be kept as low as possible for the next 20 years. We got this song coming out called "The Met" that it's just like everything that I'm just presenting here, it was just already in the song. I mean, it's so powerful how all this is happening. If necessary, what M70 just said, all-out war is an option of last resort in order to keep the people cold, right? So make sure that the populations are trained to be reactive, as I was talking about, and confused. Convince people that there is overpopulation, not that you can fit everybody in Australia and feed them. All 7 billion people on the planet can fit in the continent of Australia alone, be sustained. That can be done. You can put a lot of people, if not in Texas, with land to sustain people. Okay? Convince people that there is overpopulation that is helping to destroy the planet and that there are useless eaters among them. Formulate people's consumption habits and convince them that their consumption habits are destroying the planet. Convince people to fear a large portion of the global population. Choose those which are in a state of development and easily cold without all-out uproar. And after having dehumanized, which is what the key is, don't let them become fully human, dehumanize a chosen population. War is a great way to move forward. We have been instilling divisions within the populace for eons for us to exploit. Now we use the tactic of subdivisions, which can be created if they don't already exist, but what you want is people to divide themselves. Here is a condensed list of established divisions which we have been facilitated and are ready for exploitation. Sex, gender, of course, race, economic class, educational status, employment status, geographical location, philosophical or political affiliations, philosophical beliefs, religious beliefs, ethnicity, language, environment. So these are the things to be aware of. And when you see yourselves, unfortunately, we do sometimes, getting caught up in these types of diversionary tactics, we need to readjust our perception. We need to elevate our consciousness, all right? Because this is something that is meant to keep this program self-perpetuating. And that is not what we need in order to transform society. We need to bring society to a new reality or a renewed reality, okay? We are promoting the garden the tree of life, garden of Eden consciousness. We got to get, if Aklaman's still up in here, back to Eden. Yes, indeed. Back to Eden. That's where we need to go. I want to present this article here next. So that's not a full article. Like I said, I just wanted to get into those ideas that they're using to divide and to discourage this evolution that's taking place. Who can deny that there's an awakening taking place? The Israelite consciousness is proliferating. And we have to be on the forefront of that, because I'm telling you, unfortunately, the proliferation of this consciousness is not based all the time in truth. It's based in emotion. It's based in some inaccurate information. And that's why they got like IUIC up on the SPLC hate list, because of the doctrine and the venom that they're promoting. So this is not about hate. When you access this article, though, Please give me a 4. This article comes to us from the Hampton Institute. Of course, this is speaking of Fred Hampton from the education room in this. It's called Pedagogy of the Oppressed Against Trump, Communist Education and the Emerging Mass Movement. This is written by Derek R. Ford. He says education is a central component of revolutionary activity, especially during non-revolutionary times, and especially for cadre in a Leninist party. Now, of course, I'm not promoting the Leninist party. I'm promoting the principles that are found within this article. Listen to the principles, okay? The content is one thing, but the principles and the substance is an entirely different. In fact, Lenin's seminal work on organization and leadership, What is to be Done, touches on many educational issues, including consciousness and theory, as a polemic against economism, which held that the working class develops its own revolutionary consciousness spontaneously as a result of daily struggles with the bosses. Lenin argued that spontaneity was only consciousness in an embryonic form. So if we're being spontaneous and reactionary, that's only consciousness in an embryonic form, and that something more was needed. We need to stop being spontaneous. We're going to march on this there. We're going to protest over there. Boycott's a little more organized, but still, it's reactionary. We need to be proactive, okay? Spontaneity is necessary, but is ultimately limited to what is at the present time. In other words, spontaneity by itself isn't able to look beyond isolated daily struggles and forward to a new society. Lenin called the spontaneously generated mindset trade union consciousness. Okay, labor. This is the labor movement. Okay, the proletariat. Okay, we're dealing with the elite. We're not dealing with the petty bourgeoisie. We're not dealing with their workers still. We're dealing with people who do nothing all day but think. This is all they do all day. They think and they organize. And then they use the petty bourgeoisie to implement their plan against us. But it's still against the petty bourgeoisie too, but they just too close to really know it. So this analysis is what led Lenin to state that without revolutionary theory, there can be no revolutionary practice. By this, he meant that without a theory, without an understanding capable of connecting individual struggles and issues, here's the word again, to the totality of the social and economic system, struggles would be limited to reforms within the existing system. This was the problem with the Protestant Reformation. This is the problem with the Civil Rights Movement. This is the problem with the Black Lives Matter movement. Reform will do and accomplish nothing. Nothing. It will accomplish nothing. It has to be an absolute transformation. It has to be completely pulled up, uprooted, and I will even use the word destroyed, razed to the ground in order for a new creation to be born. Period. Just like when we had gone from our carnal reality, we had to destroy that person. That person could have nothing to do with who we are now. If we are to be a new creature in Mashiach, you have to smite that being. That's what the baptism is all about. The immersion, the mikvah, is all about dying and then being reborn. There's a death that has to take place. There's a separation that has to take place. Okay? So revolutionary theory is developed not by intellectuals holed up in university classrooms, but through the Communist Party. This is through the body of Mashiach is what we will reference, okay? Which is composed of workers who become socialist theoreticians. In the party, he wrote, all distinctions as between workers and intellectuals must be obliterated. We are an organism. We have many different organs, and these organs must be united in order for the organism to function. This is what this comes down to. Lenin believed that workers were capable of more than trade union consciousness. he actually derided those who insisted on appealing to the average worker. You gentlemen, who are so much concerned about the average worker, as a matter of fact, rather insult the workers by your desire to talk down to them when discussing labor politics and labor organization. He wrote that organizers had actually held workers back by our silly speeches about what can be understood by the masses of the workers. And I'm going to pause here on this article and end on this one as well, because this is something that drives me batty. When we use spiritual language and we speak to people, we cannot capitulate to where they are. We must elevate them. You can't use idolatrous terms and pagan terms to people if you're talking about destroying idolatry and paganism. So what I'm saying is this. If you profess Yahushua to be Mashiach, you cannot call him, this is just my opinion, I'm going to just make this clear, you can't call him Jesus Christ to someone that you're trying to bring out of Christianity, because that's what they will associate that with. That is not congruous. It is incongruous. Okay? It is an incongruent reality. When he walked earth, he didn't speak Latin. He didn't speak English. The scriptures weren't written in Greek. And a matter of fact, the ideas that are pregnant in the Hebrew are so far estranged from the ideas that are pregnant in Greek, Latin, English, whatever. So when you're using those names, this is just my take on it again. So if you don't agree, that's where you are. But I'm professing what I understand, okay? If you want to come on the mic and share what your thoughts are, we welcome that. We need dialogue. We need to have iron sharpen iron. But what I'm saying is this. We must elevate our people's consciousness. Period. That's the point that I want to make with that there. We can't keep meeting them where they are. Yes, you meet them where they are, but you must bring them to where they need to be. And that is through elevation. Let me get to this second to last article. This comes to us from Lou Rockwell. These are anarcho-capitalists, which to me is kind of funny. I mean, I agree with the anarcho part, but of course I'm an anti-capitalist. Staunch. I do not agree with capitalism in any shape, form, or fashion. For some reason, my page isn't working, so give me one moment. Let me see what's going on. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. But I hope you all follow me. I'll just have one more article after this one. Whenever it does come up. What? So now it just disappeared. Really? Really? Okay. That was me. Okay, let's see. It didn't show up. Really? All right, y'all, give me one moment, please, because I think this article is very important as relates to the overall thrust of where I wanted to go with this article. Let me just copy and paste it and go there, because that's the best thing to do for me. That's crazy. Let me just do this. Give me 1 second, Bavakasha. I apologize for the technical difficulties that I've been having. My computer, sometimes it works wonderful. Sometimes it doesn't. Elder, y'all know I'm going to probably send it to you and let you clean it up. I know that's what you specialize in there. All right. Let's see what I can do here. Hopefully this comes through for me. No sound. All right, if I can be heard now, give me a 4. Don't know what happened to my sound. All right, the name of this article from Lou Rockwell is called How to Overcome the Elite's Divide and Rule Control Over a Divided Nation and World. This is by Joachim Hagopian. So, he writes on February 7th, the violence shamefully on full display several nights ago at the UC Berkeley campus. This is over Milo. I don't know how to pronounce that dude's name, the last name. But it's an alarming reminder of just how far Americans have now gone astray in allowing the ruling elite to divide us. This is what we were just talking about, right? The repeated scenes of rioters viciously acting out their rampage, determined to shut down free speech in America and deliver violent civil unrest to foment a national crisis in this divided nation, is bent on undermining the Trump presidency. Unfortunately, this political violence is becoming increasingly common. Is America on the brink of a second civil war? Well, the articles I've been reading and what we're seeing and what our perception is showing us is it is undoubted. The presentation this article is offering explores this potentiality, focusing on the underlying dynamic behind Americans who are seemingly at war with themselves. Why? Because they are being violently oppressed. They're not able to develop, okay? They're not able to become Homo sapien. They're oppressed. So when you're keeping people down and putting pressure on them, eventually there must be an explosion. There must be some sort of rupture that takes place. Last Wednesday evening, an estimated 150 angry rock and brick throwing agitators out of a crowd of 1,500 protesters began breaking windows, starting a fire, and targeting arrivals by shoving, beating, and pepper spraying attendees at a speaking engagement of conservative, openly gay Breitbart editor Milo Yiannopoulos at the UC Berkeley campus. The ensuing rioting escalated to force the event to be canceled even prior to its start. Today's so-called social justice warriors, currently wreaking havoc in cities and college campuses across our nation, are but one example of how the U.S. population has been unwittingly splintered, conscripted, and co-sponsored by the likes of dozens of George Soros Open Society foundations to brutally take over and dogmatically rule over America's colleges and universities. And this is what I was saying again. There are violence taking place, and it's not always a physical assault of violence. It is an intellectual assault of violence. It is a spiritual assault of violence. It is a political assault of violence that is taking place through these foundations and organizations. Brainwashed by elitist social engineering think tanks into an army of fanatically militarized political correctness robots, they've been morphed into today's brown shirts equivalent to the young Nazis or Mao's Cultural Youth Revolution, sent out in the name of free speech to commit violent fascist terrorism, deployed en masse as programmed foot soldiers bent on actually purging dissent and freedom of speech in America as the so-called left's mind police control. A half-decade ago, billionaire George Soros told Newsweek a period of evil is coming to America, predicting riots, police state, and class war. And then in the coming years, he made it happen. So there's that control again. You can't just rely on fate. You have to put things in motion. You have to actualize the information that you're intaking. In cities across the country where police cold-bloodedly murdered unarmed black men, as well as throughout last year's Trump's campaign rallies to all the post-election protests, Soros-funded agitators and rioters by the busloads methodically deployed nationwide to purposely foment racial and political tensions and hostilities to make his prediction reality. You see, this is what having think tanks can do for you. And I'm not promoting this particular methodology, but when you have time to sit back and to organize and to plan and to put things into motion and even to have resources to make it happen, well, then you can actually create reality. So to imagine what we do when we follow the instructions of Torah. We may not have money like Kepha told the brother who was begging for change at one of the gates. He said, but I have this for you in the name of Mashiach Yahushua. This is what you can do. And we have to get people to receive that and to believe that and to perceive that. All right? And this is what it comes down to. For decades, Soros' money has funded regime changes and political and economic upheaval around the world, and he's at it again right here in America, inciting another color revolution revolt designed to bring about a coup d'etat of an elected U.S. president. Let's go down some. I want to get to what he talks about, okay? Because this is long. Let's get to some of the events of coming down to it. So this is what it comes down to. I want to come down. It's a paragraph getting towards the end of the article. It starts out with this particular sentence right here. So when you scroll down, this is where you want to come to, okay? I didn't count how many paragraphs down it was, but let's go ahead and get into this. He says, in any event, we must diligently seek the truth to arrive at a deeper understanding both spiritually as well as geopolitically of what's unfolding in our midst. Now, I will be honest with you, and I'm not just saying that out of bias, but when it comes to spiritually and geopolitically analyzing the landscape of the world right now, you will find no better room or no better analysis than right here in Hebrew Vision. Period. Hands down. You will not find that. That encompasses both the economic elements, the social elements, the cultural elements, the spiritual elements, the geopolitical elements, and that it's fused together as a totality and holistically. There is none. And that is in all praise to the Most High for him showing us what we are to do as an alternative information outlet. Okay? And this is what Yah has placed in our heart. And there's so much more that we're going to have on the periphery and on the horizon in the near future. So get ready, because Hebrew Vision is about to take it to the next level. So again, in any event, we must diligently seek the truth to arrive at a deeper understanding, both spiritually as well as geopolitically, of what's unfolding in our midst, rather than continue falling into the blame game which the planetary controllers have insidiously and incessantly used against us. We must recognize that we are one human family, period, fully enriched by our diversity. And only through connecting and embracing our common human heritage are we able to transcend the slings and arrows of hate and conflict that every day we're being bombarded with by the authoritarian deep state, wanting most of us as useless eaters, deplorables, dead. The globalists possess centralized control over all the world's largest corporations, virtually all national governments, including their militaries, law enforcement, and security apparatus. But what they're most afraid of is an informed and educated global masses able to think for themselves and mobilize to oppose and resist. That's your engagement. Oppose and resist the New World Order. The populist movement, starting with last year's Brexit vote and the Trump victory, currently has them desperately waging to retain their powerful full-time war for controlling both our minds as well as our souls. I want you all to let me know what you all are feeling about that. Just in one word, type in your response. What comes to your mind when we just read that paragraph in light of what we've been presenting as relates to the pedagogy of liberation? Whatever word comes to your mind right now, type that in the box, because I need to see where you all are with what we're dealing with in this particular analysis, including in light of what More M70 just shared, because this is all a part of what Israel must do in order to bring forth Yah's sovereignty and his kingdom. So please engage this. What thoughts are in your mind right now? What are you seeing? What words come to your mind? Blank. It's a blank screen. It's a blank canvas. No words. If I can be heard, give me a 1 at least. Organize. Toda Aki Amari. Become. What words are in your mind? What are you seeing? What are we to do? What is the analysis of this? What are the remedies we are to undertake? We got organize. We got become. The question is, type in what comes to your mind in light of this article and what he was just saying about how we are exactly, Morey Sheb, think tanks are needed. About what we are to do to overcome this reality. Movement. We need movement. We need to organize to become by forming think tanks for our movement. Yeah, my computer, I'm sure it's lagging. So I'm not going to belabor this article anymore. You can read that. I'm going to read my last offering to you all. And then I do believe Morey Shebaniah may have something to offer as well. And then from there, we can open the microphone up. So organize to become by putting together think tanks in order to have our movement, and this will put action in behind all our words, in which we can then have a daily broadcast of basic instructions for the day. I mean, this is how we do this. We transcend by doing and believing, and above all, stay in study. I mean, this is the beauty of it. When we have this synergy, this is the synergy that we need. This is the critical mass of consciousness that must be present if we are to unite and overcome. We need involvement. Involvement. If you're going to evolve, you need to involve yourself in order for the world to revolve in the right direction. You need to involve yourself in order to evolve and become who you're supposed to be for the world to revolve in its right direction. If you're not involved, well, you've ruled yourself out. And that's something that we're working towards in getting this broadcast. We're working to. There's some things that are in place, some people that are being met, and some connections that are being established that can allow for this to happen. But we need support. We need feedback. Because, I mean, I will be honest, if I could pull myself into journalism and writing and sharing, that's all I would do. That's all that I would do. And study, that's all that I would do. For you. Because it's a passion that I have. Cain, share these articles with individuals and help them to understand the situation. So this last article comes to us from Hebrew Vision News at wordpress.com. It comes to us in reflection of this Parshat Beshalach. It's called Manna, the bread of life. When you access it, I think you already gave me some 4s. We're going to move forward. You can see the picture there. This is written by Mikhail Korban-Yahu, yours truly. It opens up with a quote from the Sefat Emet on Parashat Beshalach on page 103. It says, the deeds of the patriarchs, the actions, the actualization of the patriarchs were so holy, and the Shekinah, the presence of Yah, so dwelt in their midst, within them, that the angels ate of their food. Remember when the three came to Abraham? They ate his food. Of this scripture says, go, eat of my food, Proverbs 9:5, for the manna is called bread from heaven. There is also bread from the earth. This refers to the redemptive work of the righteous, which we have to do every day. The bread from the earth is our ascent to heaven by repairing the age, engaging in tikkun olam. If you don't know that word, look it up. Tikkun olam, repairing of the age. That is the work of the righteous. This bread rises upwards. And then there is the bread that comes to them from heaven. And Yah said to Moshe, see, I am raining bread from the heavens for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day in order to prove them whether they walk in my Torah or not. And that, of course, is from Exodus 16:4. In the Garden of Eden, all that was needed for sustaining life was provided to Adam and his wife Hawa by their heavenly Father Yah. In fact, it is understood that prior to their beguilement, great efforts and strenuous labor was not required for the man and woman to secure their sustenance. As their diet consisted largely of plants, fruits, and grains, it is understood that they were eating the bread of life, as this food was provided to them by the hand of the Most High. After Adam ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil in open defiance to the word of Elohim, however, he was told that, quote, by the sweat of your face you are to eat the bread until you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you return. Genesis 3:19. The Hebrew word for bread is lechem, and it has as its meaning bread, food, loaves, victuals, or more expressly, the mature formation of the grain of life. When we talked about in the first article, the liberation of pedagogy, or the liberation of pedagogy, of how the objective of education is for humanity to reach its fullness. So when you're dealing with the word lechem, with bread, you're dealing with the mature formation of the grain of life. This is the grains taken from the barley or from the wheat and then formed into a substance that is perfect and complete. That's what bread is about. Even deeper, the word implies the idea of instructions or teachings that arise within man unto fullness. Do you see the liberation of the pedagogy of liberation now? If you see where this is going, give me a 1. If you see where this article is going as relates to the pedagogy of liberation, Todah Rabbah, type in a 1. What's more, the concept of bread is further compounded by its root word, lacham, which means to fight and make war, and carries the idea that all of the concepts belonging to the Father reach maturation for the utilization, the actualization, the implementation of man, which does not occur without the proper direction of internal conflict unto victory through confrontation of the lower self. We talked about uprooting. We talked about destroying. We talked about the death of oneself in order to become the new creature. This is what is meant when Yah told Adam that it was to be by the sweat of his brow that he would eat the bread. That we too are required to undergo some sort of internal conflict for refinement in order to have access to the heavenly bread is clearly demonstrated by the historical example of Israel undergoing their years of affliction while afflicted in Mitzrayim. The process of conflict that Israel endured served as proving grounds in regards to their loyalty to the covenant that was made with their ancestors Noach, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Israel. This proving process is something that has been continual in the life of the household of faith from the very genesis of our appearance to our present, even up until the revelation of the King Messiah. This is the result of the transgression committed by Adam in the garden, as we previously mentioned. Man must now demonstrate that he merits the favor of Yah consequent to the event that we have descended into the consciousness of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, as opposed to that of the consciousness of the tree of life. When our faithfulness has proved meritorious in the eyes of Yah, then we will receive the rewards that have been set aside for us by our Father and our King. As we have previously read, the newly born nation was led by Moshe, as they endured 10 plagues unscathed, and as we are encountering their sojourn now, have entered the wilderness where their continued cries have again reached the ears of Yah. Now that they have been led out of Mitzrayim and have been relieved of their burdens and oppression, they must now learn to become self-sustaining and self-determined, providing their daily bread as well as their own shelter, and carve out their destiny by conquest. As they soon discovered, the rigors of being a self-sustaining and self-determined people challenged them as they began to complain about their lack of food. In this regards, the Torah records the words, "And all the congregation of the children of Israel grumbled against Moshe and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, If only we had died by the hand of Yah in the land of Mitzrayim, when we sat by the pots of meat, and when we ate bread to satisfaction. For you have brought us out into this wilderness to put all this assembly to death with hunger." That's the slave mentality right there. That is something that our ancestors and even us in our present generation have struggled with. And that is the struggle of dependence. We have learned to become dependent on a system that has oppressed us, but we still look to it for our sustenance. What sense does that make? We would rather be enslaved. This is what they say. We would rather be enslaved in Mitzrayim, eating the meat and the bread to our satisfaction, as opposed to being free and making a way for ourselves. That's called illogic. That is called illiteracy. That is called ignorance. That is called blindness. And this is why we're bringing this to the front, because in order for our liberation to be achieved, we have to undergo a deeper, more critical pedagogy. All right? So amazingly, in spite of the fact that Israel had just experienced a great deliverance with magnificent and miraculous displays, their collective faith was found lacking as their complaints demonstrated their beleaguered state of consciousness. What is interesting to note is that the source of the initial cause of stumbling for Adam, the progenitor of Israel, would turn out to be the same initial cause of rebellion for Israel in the wilderness. Food! How much we trip over food. There's a symbolism in that, though. There is a symbolism in that, and we'll get to it. Conversely, the symbolism of food as spiritual sustenance is also implied in this week's portion with the introduction of manna, defined by Strong's Concordance as a whatness. That is the definition of it, like, what is it? Okay? This substance called manna is what fed Israel in the desert for the 40 years of their sojourning from Mitzrayim to the Promised Land. With both interrogative and exclamatory connotations, the root of the word manna, ma, which is what, implies that this substance came to the Israelites as an absolute surprise. It is written that when they encountered it, they exclaimed, "What is it?" Manna. That's what they said, manna. That's what is this stuff? That's where the word manna comes from. It was the response of Moshe, however, that provided an insight into the mystery of this heavenly substance. Upon their inquiry into the manna, Moshe replies, "It is the bread which Yah has given you to eat." This bread which Yah has given you to eat is the word which Yah has commanded. Just Selah on that. But he goes on to say, "Let every man gather it according to each one's need, an omer for each being, according to the number of beings. Let every man take for those who are in his tent." In Hebrew, this text is written as follows: "Vayomer Moshe Elchem, Hu Elacham Halacham, Asher Natan Yahu Elechem, La'achala, Ze Hadabar Asher Sava, Yahuwah Lechatu Mamanu, Ish Lapi, Ach Lo Amar Legulgot, Masafer Nefesh Techim, Ish la'ashar ba'ochelo tachachu. So, the key to this passage is found in the latter part of the verse, which informs us that this bread which the children of Israel were unable to identify was to be taken in their tents according to the number of persons within it. While on the surface, this appears to be addressing what they are to physically undertake in order to satisfy their hunger, there lies much more to this passage beneath the surface. When taking into account that the word for bread in Hebrew also implies the impartation of instruction, we discover that what is further implied from this passage is that we must internalize and bind to the understanding which gathers, which is what the Omer is about, within our skull, la galgulet, which is the Golgotha. This is where Golgotha comes from, the skull. What the Father has provided us to partake, achlo, is the revealed form of his hidden manna, the mamanu, so that he might inscribe the enumerated will of the Most High, masefer, which is what the sefer means, within our souls, the nefesh techim, to become champions, ish, when we bring the heavenly manna into our spiritual tents, the ba'achalo. Okay, so again, we must internalize and bind to the understanding which gathers within our skull what the Father has provided us to partake in the revealed form of his hidden manna, so that he might inscribe the enumerated will of the Most High within our souls to become champions when we bring the heavenly manna into our spiritual tents. If you're following that train of logic, give me a 3. If you follow this train of logic of what Moshe said in code, this is Kabbalah right here. This is the hidden meaning, the internalization and binding of the understanding which gathers in our domes, which the Father has given us to partake in the revealed form of his hidden manna, in order for his word, his will, to be inscribed in our hearts, in our souls, to become champions when we bring this heavenly manna into our spiritual tent. So more prophetically, we encounter this same teaching, which is replete with the inner side meaning, so as delivered by the Master Mashiach Yehoshua ben Yosef. This is where the fulfillment of this comes. To contextualize what the substance of the parallel teaching contains, a miracle was performed by Yehoshua, who just prior to speaking with the people, fed a multitude with just 5 loaves and 2 fish. Desiring to be further physically fed by Yehoshua, the crowds went to seek him out. The rest of this matter we can read from the 6th chapter of John, where the witness records these most powerful words. On the next day, the crowd that was standing on the other side of the sea saw that there was no other boat there except that one into which his taught ones had entered, and that Yehoshua had not entered the boat with his taught ones, but his taught ones went away alone. But other boats came from Kinnereth, near the place where they ate bread after the master had given thanks. Therefore, when the crowd saw that Yehoshua was not there, nor his taught ones, they themselves also entered into the boats and came to Capharnaum, seeking Yehoshua. And having found him on the other side of the sea, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you come here? Yehoshua answered them and said, Truly, truly, I say to you, you seek me not because you saw signs, but because you ate of the loaves and were satisfied physically. Do not labor for the food that is perishing, he tells them, but for the food that is remaining to everlasting life, which the Son of Adam shall give you. For the Father, Elohim, has set his seal on him. So they said to him, what should we do to work the works of Elohim? Yehoshua answered and said to them, this is the work. This is the sweat of the brow that Adam was told he gonna have to undergo in order to eat the bread, that you believe in him whom he sent. John 6:22-29. This monumental statement was made to provide those with insight into the fulfillment of the work that was now required to eat of the bread of life of which Adam was told that he was to partake of with a demonstrated effort. For many, the acceptance of Yahushua ben Yosef as Mashiach is indeed a great stretch of effort, in that they are unable to receive the revelation or the perception of the revelation of the instrument of Yah's propitiation for sin. And though many merely proclaim that the only requirement for this atonement to take place is to profess the messiahship of Yahushua, what the principle truly entails, like Moraim 70 just said, is that of becoming as the son of Elohim through the partaking of his teachings. As Moshe's word compared to the dew of the heavens giving life to the grass of the field, Yahushua's words serve as the bread of life, which spiritually nourish souls who were deprived of the Torah's nutrients and transform them back into the image and likeness in which they were created. Therefore Yahushua said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, Moshe did not give you the bread out of the heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread out of the heaven. For the bread of Elohim is he who comes down out of the heaven and gives life to the world." So they said to him, "Master, give us this bread always." And Yahushua said to them, "I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall not get hungry at all, and he who believes in me shall not get thirsty at all. But I said to you that you have seen me, and you still do not believe. All that the Father gives me shall come to me, and the one who comes to me I shall by no means cast out, because I have come down out of the heaven not to do my own desire, imperative, but the desire of him who sent me. This is the desire of the Father who sent me, that all he has given me I should not lose of it, but should raise it in the last day." This is what that bread does. Bread raises. It's yeast. It raises in the last day. Now, this parallel is not as a parallel as relates to Chag Matzot, but this is about being resurrected, right? Especially in the last day. So this is from John 6:32-39. That Yahushua was the bread of life, sent by the Father from heaven to earth, is the greatest work to accept and carry out, being that it is to our responsibility to become the Word made flesh. For it is through the body of his teachings from which we are to partake that will provide us with the spiritual nourishment in order for us to undergo the transformation from corruption to incorruption, from mortal to immortal. As this week's Parashat provides us with the introduction to the manna of which the people asked with shock, "What is it?" So too are souls perplexed when presented with the reality of Yahushua as Mashiach, as they ask, "What?" This is the secret of the manna and the bread of life which Yah has given humanity for the sake of their salvation. Truly, truly I say to you, he who believes in me possesses everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness and they died. This is the bread which comes down out of the heaven, so that anyone might eat of it and not die. I am the living bread which came down out of the heaven. If anyone eats this bread, he shall live forever. And indeed, that bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. The Yehudim therefore were striving with one another, saying, "How is this one able to give us his flesh to eat?" Yehoshua said to them, "Truly, truly I say to you, unless you eat the flesh of the son of Adam and drink his blood, you possess no life in yourselves. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood possesses everlasting life, and I shall raise him up in the last day. For my flesh is truly food, and my blood is truly drink. He who eats my flesh and drinks my blood stays in me, and I in him. As the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so he who feeds on me shall live because of me. This is the bread which came down out of the heaven, not as your fathers ate the manna and died. He who eats this bread shall live forever." John 6:47 through 58. And Selah. So, the pedagogy of liberation is about transformation. It is about us internalizing the teachings through study and then actualizing them, putting them into action, and making graduated transformations in our environment. But first, those transformations must take place with self. This is where the revolution begins. The revolution begins with you, with me, individually undergoing a transformation, undergoing a radical change back to our original nature, which is in fact nothing more and nothing less than the image and likeness of our Creator, who is Yahuwah, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov. This is what will cause society to truly come to its intended order. This is our responsibility, Israel. We are called to be, as we'll read next week, a kingdom of priests and a set-apart holy nation. We have a banner to uphold. We have a standard to establish. We have a kingdom to give birth to. And there is no greater undertaking than this here. There's no greater responsibility than this. There has no more accountability be given to any people in existence than to us. The yoke that we bear on our shoulders of bringing forth this kingdom is magnificent. But in Yahushua, it is light. It is easy. The burden is easy because it is all about fulfilling it in love. When we have a love for the Most High, we have a love for our neighbor, and I mean a genuine love, not some superficial surface type of love, but a real, principled, sacrificial, self-giving love, well then the world will be overcome with light, with peace, with justice, with truth. And there's no law against that. There can be no weapon formed that can prosper when that is made reality. Because no weapons will be formed. You will disarm all your enemies by diffusing situations with peace, which surpasses all understanding, Scripture tells us. And this is our imperative. This is our responsibility. This is what we have been called to do. So again, I'd rather have 35 committed people, 34, including myself, committed people in this effort. Especially when we collectively come together. And when we come together and we make this reality that much more prominent in Sion, in Mount Sion, then Yahushua told us, if you lift up the Son of Man, all men will be drawn to him. It's like a light in the darkness. What happens is all the bugs come to that light because they see it. They don't see anything else because it's dark out. They see that, so they flock to it. They want to know, man, what is this about? How do we do this? Can I become this light? Is it something that I can do? Can I participate in this? I need this. This is great. I feel this presence. It's warm. And that's what we do. We are the light of the world. But we must undergo the pedagogy of liberation. And it is a daily process. Something that Moraim 70 said, it is a daily process that we undergo in order to bring this into reality. And so that is my offering of the pedagogy of liberation, my prayer that it was truly educational. It was truly edifying. It was truly sustaining. And it was also something that, challenged us. I pray that whatever is presented is a challenge to us so that we can meet the challenge and be stretched and grow and develop and mature into perfection. That's why Yahushua said, be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. That is a great challenge for us. And we either rise to the occasion or we fail. There's no middle ground in that. We are either reflecting Yah or we're not. There's no gray area with Torah. That's why he tells us to choose life. So we all need to hear this, Iman. So I'm going to get in contact with you soon as well. But before I go, just want you all to know that we are really having some dynamic interviews. We've had 3 powerful interviews this past month and last month, and we have some on the horizon that are going to be just as powerful. And so I encourage you all and challenge you all. If you don't listen to the live broadcast, go back and listen to the podcast at Hebrew Vision on Spreaker. And there's some very good information on there, some very good views. And again, what is being done is really gathering an assessment of our people, and this is what I feel is necessary for us to do as relates to understanding where we are as a people. And I'm calling this particular segment that we're about to undergo for the next few months. So I got March booked. I'm getting into April. Got a few interviews in April as well. The voice of the people. We need to hear the voice of the people so that we as Israel can hear what Yah would have us to say in response to the voice of the people. If we're ministers, if we're priests, I was talking with my brother Lamont about this because we need to be in touch. You can't give someone something that they don't request. Although, yes, we do give them what they need, but there may be some things that they need that we don't even know about. So we can't just force a program on anyone without them having consent. And the way you arrive at consent is that you develop a relationship. You have to have a relationship. It's the same thing with Yah. Yah gains our consent by us being more intimate with him, and we come to know what he expects of us. So we're doing the same thing. Okay, so check that out. Tune into that. Again, it's every Yom Hamashi, which is the 5th day of the week, and the Gregorian called Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Support any way you can. Yes, indeed, Brother Dre Taylor. That was a good interview as well, what he's doing with the food, man. I mean, crucial stuff, and mentoring, crucial stuff. So, indeed. But let me go ahead and get ready to bring our brother Morey Shebaniah up. I want to give all praise and esteem to Yah. You said what? What'd you say? And so, Morey Shebaniah, let me type it in for you. You can get all the shows at this link here. And you can check out the blogs. We have current events on Hebrew Vision News at blogspot.com. We also put the weekly review up as well from this class. We put that up there as well. You can check out more writings on HebrewVisionNews.wordpress.com and some bunch of other stuff going on as well. But just check those things out. But I'll close out giving all praise and esteem to Avinu Makenu, our Father and our King. I want to ask Morey Shebaniah, if you're ready, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll close out with a Hatzi Kaddish, and we'll move forward from there. So with that, Yikadal Vayikadesh Shemei Rabah. Be'amadi barak herutei v'yimelech malchutei b'chayechunev yamichunev chayeda kol beit Yisrael bagalav izman kariv imeru amen. Yehesh mei rabba mavorach le'olam ul me'amaya. Yit barak v'yistabach v'yipa'av v'yit roman v'yit nasei v'yit hadar v'yit alei v'yit alal shemei l'kudashah berechu le'ela min kol barachata v'ashirata tush bechata v'nechmata damiran ba'ama v'imeru amen.